Hey guys, this is Jeff Conti, your YouTube knife mentor. I want to do a video about drill bits and holes, and there's a complex relationship here between the size of the drill bit and the actual size and shape of the hole. And we're doing that because we as knife makers, we have to fit pins or rivets, and sometimes if you're doing folders, then you're having shafts, pivot points that you're using when you make knives. So we need to know something about making holes. So that's what I'm going to talk about today. Start off with fractional drill bits. Here's your basic drill bit set, your index, and you know your half-inch drill bit all the way down. For mine is a 1/16 of an inch, and it's in 1/64 of an inch increments. Okay, and a 1/64 of an inch is about 15.5 thousandths increment. You can go to MSC Direct or maybe to your hardware stores. You will not find these in your box stores, but you can find these in your hardware stores. Probably a 1/64 of an inch drill bit, up then a 32nd, then 3/64, and then of course the 1/16 of an inch. But those are your fractional drill bits, and as far as I can tell, they go up to 3 inches on average. The ones that you and I can find, I mean, but certainly up into the 1.5 inch size, we can definitely find those drill bits at the hardware stores and or at your online tool shops. MSC Direct is the largest one that I know of, and whenever I can't find anything, that's where I go. Okay, so then comes the letter drill bit set, and your letter drill bit set is really nice. Look, it looks kind of like a 1/2 inch, doesn't it? But it's not. It's 413 thousandths. That's your letter Z drill bit, and it goes down to your letter A, which is 234 thousandths. That's your letter A drill bit. And the increments from drill bit to drill bit size is about 5 to 7 thousandths, which is way better than your fractional incremental drill bit size. And so that helps you get closer to the size of the holes that you actually want to drill. So that's your letter drill bit. And then your number drill bits, they're actually gauges. To be technically correct, they're from 1 through 80 gauge wire, which is they use drill bit steel and create drill bits out of them. So your number 1 gauge or your number 1 drill bit is 228 thousandths in diameter, and down to your number 60 or your 60 gauge drill bit is 40 thousandths, and you can see that is one heck of a small drill bit, right? But we're not even down to the little ones yet. That's just your kind of average or standard drill bit. And this doesn't even hardly look like a drill index, does it? But this is your number 61 through 80. And your number 80 drill bit or your 80 gauge is 13.5 thousandths. And then your number 61 is what, 38, 39? 39 thousandths is your number 61. And so you notice I got some broken drill bits here. I want to talk about that just for a second. Especially the number 61 through 80. If you want to be an idiot, like I was, go ahead and put these in your drill press and try to drill a hole, because I can almost guarantee you what's going to happen. You're going to break your drill bits, because a drill press uses a rack and pinion system to apply force to the drill bit tip, and it's not sensitive enough to apply the minute amount of force required to make the drill bit cut. And so you wind up breaking drill bits because the system you're using isn't sensitive enough. So you might say to yourself, well, okay, I'll use a DeWalt or a Makita, cordless drill. And unfortunately, those are they're not stable enough. They're always moving. So you wind up breaking those drill bits. Well, how the heck do we use these drill bits then? And assuming you ever need to, you're going to have to invest in or build your own tool and I'm just going to describe it here. I'm not going to get into the details. It's a chuck that's mounted onto a precision ground straight shaft, and then the straight shaft is inserted into a precision ground straight bearing, or should I say bushing. And that bushing allows the shaft to move in a linear axis in a very precise and controlled way, so that when you push with your fingers, you're actually applying the force necessary to the drill bit to start and drill the hole. Typically, the way I've seen that done is you do it on a metal lathe, but I am confident that they have something that you can apply to a milling machine and or a drill press. Unfortunately, some drill presses don't have the linear runout, not linear, but your rotational runout isn't good enough to use some of those anyway. And so if you have 2 or 3 thousandths of runout and the circular shape of your shaft, when it turns, if it's wobbling, then you're still not going to be able to use it. You need a pretty darn good quality drill press with this tool to be able to use those smaller drill bits. Okay, metric drill bits. And you're going to say, well, I'm not drilling metric holes. Well, that's not necessarily true. You may very well be drilling metric holes, especially if you buy pins from Alexei. He makes them in Siberia, and he only makes those pins using millimeter diameter pins. So you may want to use a metric set of drill bits, and I'll talk about that in a minute. But they do have micro drills like our numbered drills, and then they go up to, so here you have 2/10 of a millimeter, 3/10 of a millimeter, and then up through 25 millimeters, which is about an inch, of metric drill bits. So I have a number 1 millimeter through a 13 millimeter in 0.5 millimeter increments. Now, I think you can buy different sizes than these, but this is what you would find in a kit. And then your micro drill bits are even different increments of size as well. Okay, before I go on, I do want to talk about center drills for a moment. The center drills are used to actually start the hole. Typically what you would do is you would find the place for your hole, and you put a center punch, you whack it with a hammer, or if it's an automatic center punch, you push down until it clicks and makes a little dimple in your steel, and that's where you start your hole. And if you use a small diameter drill bit, it may or may not wander into the dimple, or it may or may not wander out of the dimple, your starting point. So if you use a number 2 center drill, you see how small that point is, it'll definitely have the rigidity that you want on the shaft to hold this drill bit straight up and down, and it won't wander out of the dimple. Okay, so that's why I typically use a number 2 and a number 4 center drill. That one looks like crap. Anyway, a number 2 and a number 4 center drill to start my holes. But they do make them up to a number 6, and this is a 0.0 sized center drill. Look at how small those dang things are, man. And that is not the smallest of them, because they go down to 5/0, 4/0, 3/0, 2/0, and then 0. So that's the size I was just showing you when it goes down to 5/0. And then it goes up to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. And this is your number 6. That's a beast, isn't it? Anyway, so that's about center drills. I use them all the time, even when I'm just doing skeletonizing on my knife handles, because I want to get my hole into the starter punch divot, and I don't want it to be flexing off or wandering out of the divot. Okay, so that's your drill bits. Here's my examples. Let's say you have a letter D drill bit, that's 246 thousandths. The next size up is a letter E or a 1/4 inch. They're both 250 thousandths, and that's 4 thousandths larger than your letter D. And then comes the 6.5 millimeter. Remember we just talked about why would you use millimeters? Well, this is 255 9/10 diameter, which is 5 9/10 larger than your E and your 1/4 inch, but it's 1 1/10 smaller than your letter F. So it is in between these, and so you may find a use for that. And like I said before, if you're using millimeter pins, then you might want to use millimeter drills. Anyway, here we go. So then your letter F is 1 1/10 larger than your 6.5 millimeter. And then your 17/64 is 265 6/10, which is 15 6/10 larger than your 1/4 inch and 8 6/10 larger than your F. So you can see you can get a varying degree of incremental increase depending on the hole that you're trying to drill. So here's example number 2. This is using numbered drills, so the smaller ones. You have 185 thousandths, and then your 3/16 is 187.5, which is 2.5 thousandths larger than your number 12. Then your 13 is actually 1.5 thousandths larger than your 3/16. Your 5 millimeter is 7 8/10 larger than your number 13, and then your 13/64 is 6 2/10 larger than your 5 millimeter. And of course your 13/64 is 15.5 thousandths larger than your 1/4 inch. So that's how you can get an incremental increase or decrease in your hole size depending on the size of the hole that you want to drill. Okay, I want to talk about holes now. So I want to say something a little controversial for some of you who don't already know. Drill bits do not produce round holes. Basically, I would say drill bits produce either an oval or an oblong or a peanut-shaped hole. And you can prove it. So take your 1/2 inch drill bit, put it in your drill press, get a piece of sheet metal and some heavy leather gloves, and then drill a hole, and you will get a peanut-shaped hole, and the thing will rattle around like crazy, and it makes a big ruckus, and it's a pain in the butt, but you do not get a round-shaped hole. And you say, well, but what if I use thicker steel and I put it in a vise? I agree. You're going to get what looks to your eyeball is a round-shaped hole, but I guarantee you it is not a round hole. So how do you know? Well, you take a 1/4 inch pin and you try to put it in a 1/4 inch hole and it won't go. There's a couple reasons for that, but we'll get into that in a minute. So if you don't believe me, go talk to a machinist. He'll tell you straight up, drill bits do not produce round holes. How do you produce a round hole? That's a good question. You need a reamer. A reamer will produce a round hole and very dimensionally correct, because these are precision ground, and if you buy good ones, okay, let me talk about that just for a second. If you want to buy a full set at Harbor Freight of fractional, number, and letter drill bits, go ahead. In about a short period of time, you're going to regret it, because they're not going to hold their sharpness. They're going to break. There are going to be all kinds of problems with them, and you're going to be sorry. And then you're going to go back to the store, and you're going to start looking for some good quality drill bits. Same is true with reamers. You're probably not going to need a whole lot of reamers. You're probably only going to have to need a few. So buy good ones. What I normally say is buy once, cry once. And in the middle of a job is not the time for you to say, oh, this drill bit isn't working, and then you got to stop what you're doing and go buy a good drill bit. So same with a reamer. Okay. Again, these make drill bit holes into round holes and dimensionally correct size. So here's a couple notes on using reamers. Number 1, protect your reamer. Some of you are like me. You have a little box over by your drill press, and when you're working, you're using a bunch of tools all at the same time, over and over and over. So instead of backing in and out of your index or backing in and out of their little protective box, you put them in the little box sitting by the drill press, and they clank around on each other and they get damaged. So what do? Put a little bit of tape around your drill bit and around your reamer when you put it in that box, in that little holder by your drill press. Either that or put them back into their indexes or into their little protective case. Do not just throw them in the box, and or you could create a box that has little slots where you can get in and out of the box and keep everything separate. Okay, so protect your investment, right? Do not reverse, I can spell, I really can, reverse direction of the reamer when it's in the hole. So these are meant to cut clockwise, and when you're in the work, do not reverse the direction counterclockwise while in the hole. You will damage the reamer. It will no longer be round, and it will no longer be sharp. And you can't sharpen these. You can sharpen drill bits. I do it all the time, but you cannot sharpen these because then you change the shape and you change the diameter of the reamer. You can't sharpen these. So what do? Don't reverse the reamer in the hole, and protect your reamers. So that was an investment. To use the reamer, you want to use a dimensionally smaller drill bit than the reamer. About 15 thousandths, so 1/64 of an inch is fine. And then this reamer will do a fine job of creating a nice round hole the size you want. Okay, why do we care about all of this? Because here's where the rubber meets the road, my friend. If you want, here's 3 different examples. If you want a precise fit, you want your shaft or your pin to slide into the hole with some resistance, and you don't want to use lubrication, you don't want to use epoxy, you just want to, let's say, and this is what I do, you're making a tool, and you lubricate the shaft and the bore of your bushing when you're storing them, but when you use them, you clean them off with alcohol or acetone, and so there's no lubricant in there. Then you need a 0.2 of 1/1000th difference in size for the shaft to go into the hole, assuming the hole is round and the pin is round. If the hole isn't round or the pin isn't round, good luck. All bets are off. If you're going to put epoxy in the hole, like we do with our knife pins or rivets, then you need about 2 to 3 thousandths larger hole so that the epoxy has somewhere to go, so it will secure the pin or the rivet in the hole. If you're going to use a lubricated shaft in a lubricated bore, you need about 0.5 of a thousandths different in size. So their shaft is 0.5 smaller than the hole. Okay, so here's an example. And this is for a precise fit. If your hole is 125 2/10 and it's round, and the pin is 125 thousandths and it's round, the pin will go into the hole. No problem. If you have a hole that's 125 thousandths and the pin is 124 8/10 and they're both round, the pin will go into the hole. No problem. If they're not round, if they're not the right diameter, the pin won't go in the hole, or the pin will go in the hole and it'll be so sloppy you won't be satisfied. And here's an example. If you look carefully, you really can't see, see if I can get this, you really can't see any difference. There's no gap between my pin and my cocobolo. That's because I have a very nice round, dimensionally correct hole. And that's why this is important. Now, if you don't care, if you're going to drill a great big hole and you're going to put a small pin in and you got this big gaping epoxy line all the way around your pin, well, that's the quality of your work, okay? As you get older or as you get more experienced, you're going to want to do what I'm telling you, which is get nice round holes, the right size, and then everything will assemble properly and you will have good product, better products, okay? For some people, for some of you guys who don't have all the equipment, you go out and get, a cheap drill bit, you drill a hole, it's not the right size, but you get your pin in and you make your first knife. Let me say to you, good for you. I mean that, good for you. You're getting started, you're making a knife, you've got things going. You might say, yeah, I don't like the looks of that gap between my pin and my hole, but that's what I could do for now. Eventually, as you grow and you get better and you buy more tools, let's say you sell a knife or you sell some wood, or you get some money, you go buy better tools, you go buy more of them, and then you're able to do better work, and your skill level grows, okay? So that's drill bits and holes. I'm not necessarily trying to suggest that you should have this kind of precision and do the kind of work that older knife makers can do. I'm suggesting that this is good information, and if you grow up with this information in your hobby or in your business, you will do better work over time. Okay? This is Jeff Conti, your YouTube knife mentor. Go out and have fun making a knife.